You can see here I've loaded up the image of my goat in a plane in the background. And here I'm opening up the image of the head. But I've just cropped out the head section from my original drawing, and I've put it on a square plane here in the background. So nothing tricky. It's just an image on a plane. And I'm going to use that as the template from which to get the 3D model from. I'm going to start by making a simple plane. Instead of starting with a sphere or a cylinder, I'm going to create this just from edge loops. And I've got one plane here. It has no segments in it, so it's actually just a single polygon. And then I'm going to rotate that plane to kind of match up with the creature's eye. And here you can see in the user view, I'm just moving this plane away from that background plate so that it's hovering about the equivalent of where his eye would be from the center of his head. You can barely see it there. And we're just guessing, but we don't want it lying flat on that image plane. So it's just kind of hovering out there. And in this front view, it looks like it's flat on the plane, but it's not. But again, that's just a simple plane object. And here you can see I'm going to lower the segments, the length and the width segments, so that I have just a one polygon. Make sure you do that, or it'll be a nightmare to deal with. And now I'm going to grab the edges. And first I'm going to actually play around with the vertices here just to get that piece a little bit more the way I want it. I'm going to click on an edge, and holding down Shift, I'm going to extrude out another polygon. And with showing edged faces, you can see now there are two polygons. And then I'm going to use my vertices just to move these vertices so they're radiating out from the eye. The first piece here is probably the trickiest. I'm going to extrude another piece, go back to vertices, and change the vertices so they're just radiating out from the center of the eye. What we're doing here is we're making a little template of where the hole is for this creature's eye, and we're going to use that template to extrude the whole rest of the head off of. If you can get the eye in place, it'll really make the edges for the rest of the head fall into place, I've found. And we're going to do this all the way around the object, or the eye. And remember, these pieces are actually hovering above that background plane, the equivalent of 5 or 6 inches. And we'll keep going. I'm just playing with the vertices, trying to keep them neat, but we do want the edges radiating out from the center. And we'll come all the way back around to where we started. There's other ways to do this. We could use bridge and add segments as we go. Just kind of place these guys in position around that eye. There we go. And now I'm going to grab the outer border, and what I'm going to do is, using scale, I'm going to scale out or clone out another border. And you can see how we're going to do this. We're just going to build out from the eye. And we're going to have to take the skeletal structure and anatomy into account here, and there's going to be some guesswork. So I'm going to pull this piece out as if it's being beveled out. I'm going to make another extrusion and just pull that out as well, and just kind of carve out this eye hole area. You can see it there in perspective view. There we go. And you can just hit F when you want to go back to the front view. I'm going to change these vertices around just to get them lined up to where I want them to head off to. And we're going to do a lot of this as we build this structure up. You can also use chamfer like I'm doing here. I'm just trying to show you some different ways that you can make these edges. So that's just a chamfered edge there. And then I'm going to grab these polygons that I just made. And I'm going to bevel those out slightly just to get a very, very slight bump, like an eyelid. Something like that. We're just creating structure where there was none to start with. We'll clean all of this up as we go, but we want to start with the structure of our goat head, and that's going to be his eyeball socket. There we go. And I'm going to do a target weld on that new bevel that I made just on the edges here, just to give it a little bit smoother look. Oops, that's not right. There we go. And it gives us a little bit smoother look, kind of like an eyelid, and we can play with that more down the road here. There we go, back to the front view. And you can see kind of like he's got a mask on. That's how we're going to keep moving here. And I'm just going to grab some of these outer edges and extrude just some of them this time. There we go. A little bit better. This will get a little bit more difficult in a minute when I have to start bending these polygons and edges around the head, which is a little trickier to figure out what's going on. Right now they're fairly flat, hovering above that background plane. And now I'm going to start to bend these around. You can see there are just the slightest bend to get us going in the right direction. Go. Kind of playing with this. Now what I'm going to do here is extrude out like a chin strap or a band that, as soon as I turn this around, is straight right now because I extruded it straight out along one axis, but I'm going to bend it over until it meets this image plane that I've got my template on. And then I'm slowly going to move these back around, and in a second here you'll see what we've got. We'll end up with this kind of support piece that will start to describe that piece of the head. And it looks weird. It looks like he's got a little strap-on eye patch or something going on, or glasses. But this is a really easy way to create organic pieces like bodies or heads, because we'll just do a few of these kind of structural pieces that reach out and around and describe the more complex areas, and then all we have to do is fill in the in-between areas with polygons we create, and we'll have a very cool looking skull that would be hard to make otherwise. And it'll look a little weird. It's going to look like he's kind of got some strap-on glasses here. There we go. It's not bad. I'm going to jump over here to my my left viewport. You can also just hit L just to get a straight-on view of this stuff. Try to keep these segments that we're making lined up and rotated to go along with the curve of these pieces. So sometimes you're going to have to rotate these yourself into place and back into our front viewport. Go. We're just going to grab one more piece and extrude it out and around. It's going to be this piece that goes back around his cheek or his neck area there. And it's the same process. So we'll rotate this around now. And we'll bend this around. Now remember, his neck comes into this area, so this isn't going to bend all the way back to the image plane. This one's actually going to bend out a little bit to describe that part of his skull, because that's eventually going to plug into his neck back there, which we've already modeled. There we go. And if we guess a little bit at the geometry, it's fine. Another piece, we'll extrude this down. This is similar to the last one that we made. This one's going to describe his cheek area, or below his eye, and again this one does not need to go down to the image plane because it's going to plug into his neck. There we go. We'll kind of puff it out a little bit, give him a little bit of a horse cheek thing going. Now what I'm doing here is showing you how you can fill these areas in. I'm going to extrude a new piece out, and it's similar to the last two that we made. It's going to match up pretty much to what we just did. And we'll just kind of make these vertices follow the anatomy a little bit, so just kind of branch out down here. There we go. And with enough structural pieces like this, all we have to do is fill in the in-between areas, and we'll have ourselves a pretty solid mesh. So it's kind of like you get the whole head, and all you have to do is describe a few areas. The rest will take care of itself. And now I'm going to use bridge, and with bridge-specific edges, I'm going to click on one edge, then the other. You can see I'm going back and forth here, and I'm just going to bridge these parts across. And then you'll need to hit apply after each time you do it, and then do it over again. So click on one edge, go and pick edge 1, click on it, then pick edge 2, click on the opposite edge, and then hit apply. There we go. Just one of many ways you can make new polygons. I find this to work pretty well for this particular purpose. It's pretty quick. You could also make your own polygons using Create. We'll do these. And you can see how those structural pieces hold everything together, and all these new polygons that you're making just connect the in-between parts. And so when we're all done, what we end up with is the beginnings of a big mesh that's going to be our head of our horse. And we'll go back in, we'll play with the anatomy here a little bit and just kind of put these vertices where we want them. Real nice way to work. This will work for really anything that's organic. Okay, that looks good so far. You can kind of see how this is going to go. Lots of moving vertices around. Good time to scrub through the video if you want to skip the exciting vertex movement here. Okay. And what I'm looking for here is I want to turn off edges only. That was a right click on the mesh and then turn off edges only. And I'm looking at those interior edges here, those little dotted lines. And I'm using the turn button under Editable Poly in edge mode. And I'm flipping some of these edges so that that mesh can more easily bend around all these curves. You're going to have to do this a lot. Usually it's fairly easy where the edges need, or fairly obvious where the edges need to be flipped. But it's just part of the game. Those four-sided polygons don't bend in one direction very well, and they bend in the other direction pretty well. And sometimes you have to flip that interior edge. So again, that's a right click on the object, turn on edges only. Sorry, turn off edges only. And you'll see the interior edge, then use the turn button under Edit Poly. There we go. I'm just kind of looking this over, figuring out where I want to go next. Finding some edges that I need to turn here. And if you just plod along this process fairly slowly, you'll be pretty happy with the outcome. There's no quick way to do it, but it doesn't take forever either. We're going to extrude out another piece here, same as we did before. Holding down Shift as I go, just extruding out these pieces. So click on the edge, hold down Shift. Line them up. You can see where I made those polygons thicker, where his cheek is. And now I'm just going to pull out some pieces and wrap them around down towards his mouth. And we'll pull these out. Give him some cheeks. His little chin strap. And we're going to extrude some pieces up and over that little round cheek part. And describe the anatomy a little bit with our vertices and our edges. Move these around, again describing the anatomy. Do the same thing on the bottom. Okay. Not as much talking here. I'm doing about the same things I've been doing all along. I'm going to continue manipulating these a little bit just to get closer to the anatomy I want. I'm just following my drawing, so some areas come out towards me and other areas recede away. We got these pieces here where we left off are going to need another extrusion. There we go. And you can see I'm just going to match it up with the geometry underneath there. That looks pretty good. I'm just making some loops that I can connect these into here. Okay. This one here is going to end up being a try. I think instead of doing that, I think what I want to do is I'm going to grab this edge right here. There we go. Let's do a connect through there. A little bit. You can do edge bridges. We'll do that this time just since we did that before. use edge selection. There you go, hit apply. And even this one, even though that's a bit of a stretch, we're going to chop that one. Well, actually, I think what I'm going to do is undo that. I think I'll put a piece coming straight out of there. I think this one and this one can probably hook up, though. Okay. And then back to vertices. And we'll just kind of manipulate our vertices a little bit more. There we go. So we're starting to get that shape. What I'm looking at when I spin it around here is I'm looking at that light as it's bouncing across those surfaces, looking for any edges that might need to be flipped. Since we're building this from a base plane, it would be pretty remarkable if some of these didn't need to be flipped. That one doesn't. And I'm looking for the way that the polygon has to bend as it goes across the surface. This one here is wrong. You can see that's going to work a lot better. Oh, no, it's not. I take that back. That one is one that should be like that. That one should be also. There we go. Okay, and then back to our face building. Okay, I'm going to, I think, stretch a piece across here and do this underside of the jaw next. And that's just going to be, just give myself some geometry here. Target weld these guys together and then see what we got to work with. I think we'll push these up and do this in a couple rows. No, had it right the first time. Okay, and we're going to get some more. I'm going to pull these back under. Okay, so we got that jaw structure starting to get done there. Alright, we'll aim for this area here, and I think to get that we're going to extrude these two edge loops up. Go. Widen these out as they come up and over the head. These polygons tend to get wider as they get farther away from the center of the head. Not as much detail, so we can cover it with less space. There we go. And we'll grab these guys. Kind of start to move them in. Can always add more segments. I think what I'll do is leave that and just add another segment in here. Okay, you can see the side of the head there. I'm going to grab just this general area here and use soft selection on it. Just going to cut my fall off down. I'm just going to push this out. So we can change this as we move along. It is easier to do it as you move along, I think, than trying to get it right off the bat. There we go, a little bit more modeling now. Starts to take shape. Okay. We'll finish this piece up here. Okay. I can't get a hold of this edge for some reason. do I have? That's why. Because we've got multiple edges in there. What's happened here is I've got an extrusion already built in there. That's what I'm deleting now. That's why I couldn't extrude these. Alright. Let's try this again. Okay. Victory. Finally got it. Alright, that's going to be that bump on top of the head that he's got. Okay. Alright. And again, I'm just following the anatomy. In this case, I'm going to go back to bridge. You can do it this way. Well, let's just go back to the way we were doing it. There we go. Okay, so that's all bridged up there. I am going to go back to soft selection here because I want this area to be kind of pushed out a little bit more. There we go. Turn that off this time, and we'll bridge these. Okay. That piece is done. He's starting to look decent. Get him lined up straight. And let's continue with this piece here. This was one of the first pieces we made. So I'm just going to expand these on the two axes that they're based off of. And we'll extrude some pieces off of this. You can rotate these too if you want. I do that quite often. If you can't get a hold of them, you can always do a loop. See, that's going to line up these bottom pieces a little bit better. Like so. I think we'll do trying to figure out how many pieces I want across here. I guess we'll just do one. Okay, and now we can pretty much just target weld these guys together, but not those. I get the right ones to target weld. go. Go back to soft selection again, and I want this brow piece here to kind of really bump out a little bit more, like that. There we go. If you want it to look like there's some bone laying underneath that, go back to edge, turn this off, and we'll go back to bridge. Thinking how I want to build this in. I think I need to look at this a little closer here, decide what we want to do. I could run an edge through there. That would probably solve the problem. I'm going to do a ring and a connect. Now here, what I really want is a vertice right here. There's a trick to get that piece there. What you can do is create a polygon across here, and then do a cut on that. And you can see now I have the polygon, or the vertice. I think I said polygon before. The vertice where I want it. Right there. Okay. And we'll do a create. Well, we're creating the polygons this time. I could have done a border bridge, same thing. Okay, and the only thing I've got that I need to patch up here is this little guy right here. He's just going to weld right in there. So, starting to look pretty good. Again, I'm going to go back to my vertices and soft selection and get a little bit more form in here. I'm still kind of thinking this will look a little better puffed out down here. Yeah, you kind of have to imagine what the other side's going to look like on it right now. Okay. There we go. Alright, and we're going to do the same thing over here. Turn that off before I forget. So these guys are going to come down. Okay. Looks like it's going to work pretty good. We're going to need to use our little polygon trick here again to get a vertice in here. And so I'll use cut. Or we could, here, let's do it a different way. We could use edge and connect, and that puts it right where we needed it. It puts that vertex right there for me. Alright. So you can see we're just kind of wrapping around the head to create the form. So I'm going to do this area next, and I'm going to extrude these pieces down and around to kind of get some framework to work with. And once you start getting a certain amount of these pieces in place, it goes a lot faster. And you can see I'm just rotating these pieces so they follow my concept. So you always want those edges to kind of be pointing with the geometry. There we go, back to our vertices. Give this guy a spin, make sure we got that right. Since we want these pieces to come out, my concept has a little knob on his nose. Kind of like a taper or something. So something like that. I'm going to scoot these up just so I got a little bit more room. And it does take a little bit of practice just to kind of know where these edges are in that 2D view. I find it can be kind of hard to figure out what's going on until you've done a couple. There we go. And I think what I'm going to do is extrude a piece down here, which looks like it would be probably this piece. And I'm doing the bottom of that nose piece now. There we go. And once again, if we want it to bow out, we'll start bowing it out from this end, and then we'll bow it in over on this end. So you can see that piece I just made has a little bit of a bow to it. Okay, that looks good. You can see it twists a little bit there, which is what I want. There we go. So now we've kind of got that twisted ribbon piece there that's going to shoot out and hold this bottom piece in place for his nose. And I think at this point I can extrude this piece out. I'm going to move it in a little bit, holding down Shift again. And this one's not too important because I'm just going to do a target weld from the new piece to the old piece, because the old piece is in the right position. The new piece I just extruded a straight piece, so we don't want to change the old piece. The one up here was in the right position. This one's the new one. And now we can do a quick edge bridge. We're using the selection. There we go. Hit apply.
look at that last piece for a second. I've got some verts here that need to be moved down just a little. And these guys are going to come in here. There we go. Kind of round that nose out. You can see these vertices here now are indented a little bit too much, so we'll push them out. Looks like that's ripped there. Yeah, it is. Got some, got a polygon issue there. There we go. There we go. Okay. So from this view, I'm just looking at these curves, and I'm just kind of like wire, just kind of bending them around to match the shape I'm after. I think I'm going to make a polygon here and finish this one off. I think we're just going to go here, 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 and here, and here, 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 and here. There we go. And we'll see if that looks about right. I want this piece to bow out a little bit, so once again I'm going to come down here to soft selection, adjust my fall off because I don't want any other areas affected, and we'll just kind of bow this up and out. This one's the same. It's going to come up. There he goes. So he has a little bit of a bump on his nose. There he goes. This area down here doesn't bow out enough for me. There we go. That's more what I'm after. I want kind of a bump there on his nose where this nasal area is going to be. Okay, and back to our edges. We'll finish up this area in here. Should be pretty easy. We've got two edges here, and it looks like we can bring this edge straight down here and run this edge around there. So let's do this one first. Oops. Again, you got to turn off soft selection. I seem to be forgetting to do that a lot in this tutorial. So there we go. We'll just bring these around here, leaving a little space so it's easy to weld up. Just straightening these lines out to go with the flow that I already built in there. And vertice, target weld. Remember, go the new one, the new edge loops glue to the old ones, because the old ones are in place. The new ones are not. There we go. And this one's way off here. Okay, and we're going to need to move this guy out a little bit. Let's get these lined up. Okay. You can see the shape we're after there. Now this last piece, again, I've got two I've got an edge here that's not going to match up well over here. So I'm going to do a cut under polygon. And I'm just going to cut from here and go right up here so that those guys will match up well. And we'll go back to our edges. We'll do bridges this time. And there we go. Now we'll start forming this mouthpiece, because that's going to start becoming important next. Turn this guy around. See, we don't really want this piece indented that much, so we'll just grab those two, these two, move them in. I'm just looking at those rings there. That's what I'm looking at, so I can tell what's not lined up right. See how those rings now just go smoothly around, and that tells me that for the most part, my animal is looking pretty good. Okay, so now we've got the bottom of the jaw, the mouth, and the nose. And for the mouth, I'm going to extrude this piece around to make the bottom of the lip. Okay. And of course that's coming straight out, so we're going to have to push these in. I'm on the wrong axis. I was wondering why that wasn't intersecting. There we go. So we'll push these in until we get the curve we're after. It's pretty good. Now, for this jaw, I'm going to extrude out a little piece here. I want another piece going out here. Actually, I'm going to extrude this one out too. There we go. And we'll target weld a few of these together now. There. And what I'm doing is just setting up where I'm going to shoot this next extrude out from. I don't want his mouth to open. That's not going to be necessary for our project, and I'm not going to bother with this in this project. That adds a little bit of a kink to the plan. If you want his mouth to open, because then we'd have to build an inside to the mouth. And I don't really want to do that on this one. It's a lot of work. There we go. That's going to be his mouth. But I do need to... oh, you know what would be an easier way? I just thought of this. Is if I grab this piece here, then I don't have to curve it around. There we go. Brilliant. Okay, so there's his mouth. Now all I have to do is just figure out where there's a vertex in there. There it is. Okay. Okay, but I do want a little indentation here between the lips. You can see here at the end, that's what I'm building in right now. And to do that, we'll have to grab this piece we can do a loop and just deselect the parts we don't want to affect. And what I'm going to do, oops, if I can hit the button in the right order, there we go, is just rotate this in a little bit. So just a little bit, and then pull it in. And see how it's making that indentation there. And that's what we want. Now we could chamfer this. So if I hit chamfer, you'll see that it'll make this indentation in there. It's very thin. And I can grab these pieces here. And just move them in. So now he had lips. Move these pieces out here a little bit. There we go. Oh, I keep moving them out too much. There we go. So that'll work. I'm going to have his lips overhang a little bit more the farther down they go. So there's his lips. Looks good. Won't be talking much through this. This will probably go pretty quick. Scoot that guy around. Okay, let's see here. Probably make the most sense to do these two. I'm going to extrude these straight up and then move them over just so they line up a little straighter before I want. Okay. And I'm going to target weld this piece here. And then just move this one up to continue that line of the lip. Oops. Okay. And with these final pieces, there's really not a whole lot of options where you're going to hook them up. So they become pretty easy. And I like to do a lot of target welds into the older sections. Oops. We've got an issue there we're going to have to fix. I think. Let's do this. There we go. Now, okay, one more extrusion. That'll solve our issue here. Okay, and then we're going to have to kind of weld some pieces together here to make this work. So this one's going to go here, this one's going to go there. This guy is going to move down a little bit. Actually, I think I'm going to delete that one and go this way. Keep things a little straighter. Okay, now his mouth got a little messy down here. I got to go back in here and clean this up because we've got some dings and dents that aren't really where I wanted them. Just looking at that line and kind of creating the profile I'm after. That's his nose. Okay, and we had a goes there, that goes there. Okay. Just spinning this around, giving it a look. See if everything lines up how I want. Okay, and then back to our soft selection. And this area here, I want to come out. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Oops. Getting a little straighter. Okay, and we'll finish up here with the chin. It won't take long. Okay. Oh, actually, we don't want a bridge. We just want to do a target weld here. You can target weld edges as well. I haven't been doing a lot of it, but figured we'd do it here just to show you how you could do it. The dismantling of the limb. Okay. Over here to vertex, and one last time with our soft selections. I'm going to move these, I'm going to move these vertices here in just to get them straight. Okay. And there's our head. I'm going to apply a smoothing group to these, but I'm going to take out his little lip area here. Actually, I'm going to include his lip area. What I'm going to take out is his mouth. There we go. And we'll put a smoothing group on that. There we go. And then we'll grab this little mouth section here. And we'll just put another smoothing group on that. And we'll render this, see what we got. So that's what we've got right now. So he's looking pretty good. At this point, I'm going to jump out here to my 4 views, make sure he's centered. If you have any of these vertices along this interior edge that need to be straightened up, now would be the time to do it. And otherwise, symmetry is going to cause you some issues. And I'm going to go ahead and put symmetry on this guy. There it is. And we'll make sure we get the right axis. I'm going to move this. I could move this by hand, but since everything is lined up to the grid, what I'm going to do here is type in 0 down here under Y, and that's going to snap symmetry right to the center of my grid line. And that should give me my critter. We'll get rid of this template back here now. I was going to hide it, but I think I'm just going to delete that. And let's see what we got. So here's our horse head. It's not really a horse head, it's a critter head, we'll call it. And I'm going to go ahead and save this so that if you want to play with importing it and attaching it to the body, you certainly can. Alright. And we'll fold all this up, and we'll save this guy. Oh, we already did. Sorry. And now we'll put this onto the body, and I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'll bring this back up as the final, and you can see what it looks like. The model with the head applied. When I brought the model in, the neck section here was a different scale. It didn't match up very well with the neck I had built, so it took some stretching and maneuvering of vertices, but I've got it in place, and I'm not entirely happy with his mouth at this point. I'm going to go back in and change that, but I do like this silhouette that I've got. He's eventually going to have some fairly large ears and some horns built on him as well, and that's probably the next time you're going to see him. Those are easy enough to add. I've also added his tail in, I think, since the last time you saw him. But you can see the different views here, and he's turning out okay. And if I expand this one out and render it, this is what we have so far. So we have to do his eyes, some ears, some small details. But in general, the model is almost done, at least at this point, getting the low poly version done. So we'll start texture mapping him soon. And that's it for the head. And we'll start with the texture mapping, and then I'm going to go back in and do his eyes, his ears, his horns, and maybe a mane or some sort of fur-like structure on him.